Hello, my name is Sophia, and today, I want to share with you something that truly changed my life. The way I trained my brain to think in English, it wasn't magic, it wasn't a course. It was a journey I walked step by step, and now I want to walk you through it. You don't become fluent by memorizing words. You become fluent by changing how your mind works. Once I stopped translating and started thinking in English, the real change began. Let me tell you how I did it. When I first started learning English, I thought I was doing everything right. I memorized hundreds of words. I repeated grammar rules like a robot. I watched videos and filled notebooks with translations from my native language into English. But something strange kept happening. Every time I tried to speak, I felt like I was walking through thick mud. My thoughts were fast in my mother tongue but slow in English. It was like there was a traffic jam in my brain, all because I was translating everything, word by word, before I could say it. "How are you?" turned into a long, awkward journey inside my mind. First, I heard the question in English. Then I had to change it to my native language to understand it. Then think of the answer in my own language. Then find the English words to say it back. By the time I opened my mouth, the conversation had already moved on. I felt embarrassed, like my brain just couldn't keep up. This continued for years. I was stuck in a cycle of learning and forgetting, speaking and freezing. Even after all that practice, I still didn't feel natural. I couldn't think in English. And that's when I realized the problem wasn't my memory or my accent, or even my vocabulary. It was my method. Translating was a trap. It slowed me down and kept me dependent on my first language. So, I made a promise to myself. I will stop translating. I will start living in English. I didn't know exactly how I'd do it, but I knew I had to try. At first, it was difficult. I had to retrain my brain to connect English words directly to ideas, not through my mother tongue. So I started with simple, everyday sentences. I'm hungry, I'm tired, it's cold today. I wrote these down on sticky notes and placed them around my room every time I saw one. I didn't just read it, I imagined the situation. When I saw I'm hungry, I pictured myself opening the fridge. When I saw it's cold, I imagined wearing a coat. I didn't try to translate these feelings anymore. I let the English words connect straight to the image, straight to the emotion. That was the first step. Then, I started watching videos without subtitles. It was hard. I didn't understand everything, but I focused on catching the feeling, the expressions, the way people moved their hands, their faces. I stopped trying to understand every single word and instead focused on the meaning behind the words. I let English wash over me like music. I began to trust that my brain would catch up, and little by little, it did. To break my translation habit, I also began labeling things around my house, not with translations, but with full English sentences. On my mirror, I wrote, "I look great today." On my kitchen cabinet, "Time to cook something yummy." On the window, "The sun is shining." These weren't just vocabulary exercises. They were real sentences connected to real life. The more I saw them, the more they became part of my thinking. One day, I caught myself walking into the kitchen and thinking, I need to boil some water, without translating it first. That was the moment I knew something had changed, but it wasn't easy all the time. Sometimes I would slip back into translation mode, especially when I was nervous or tired. I remember going to a small cafe once. The woman at the counter asked, "What would you like to drink?" And immediately, my brain ran away in my native language. I panicked, forgot the English word for lemonade, and just pointed at the menu. I felt small, like all my practice had disappeared. But later that night, I didn't scold myself. Instead, I said out loud, "Next time, I will say, I'd like a lemonade, please." I imagined the scene again, this time in English. That moment became a lesson, not a failure. Another thing that helped me was using English as my inner voice. Before, whenever I was alone, my thoughts were in my native language. I would think about my plans, my feelings, my day, all in the language I grew up with. But I decided to change that. Every time I caught myself thinking in my mother tongue, I gently stopped and tried to say the same thing in English. Not perfectly, not quickly, just honestly. I would think, "I need to go to the bank." Instead of my native phrase, "I wonder what she meant by that message," instead of translating it. Bit by bit, English started living inside my thoughts. Still, There were moments of frustration, times when I wanted to give up and go back to what was easy. But then I'd remind myself why I started. I didn't want to just speak English. I wanted to live in English. I wanted to feel it, dream it, breathe it, and that kind of fluency doesn't come from translating. It comes from transforming. To make this easier, I changed my phone language to English. I started following English content creators, watching motivational videos, listening to podcasts. Every word that entered my brain was a small drop of change, and those drops added up. I found that when I heard the word rain, I didn't picture the translation. I pictured a gray sky, wet roads, the sound of drops on my window. My brain was finally working in English, not around English. The biggest shift came when I started feeling emotions in English. One day, I was watching a short film online, just a simple story, and I cried. Not because of the acting, but because I understood everything without needing subtitles. The sadness, the love, the loss, it all made sense directly. That's when I knew I wasn't translating anymore. I was experiencing English. Looking back, I see now that translation is like training wheels on a bicycle. It helps in the beginning, but if you never remove them, you'll never ride freely. You'll always be limited, always slow. The moment I let go of translation, I fell a few times, but I also started to ride. My balance came from trust in my mind, trust in the process. And yet, even as I started thinking in English, I noticed something else. My speaking was still slow. My thoughts had become smoother. Yes, but when I tried to speak out loud, I still hesitated. I knew what I wanted to say, but my tongue didn't follow. I needed to practice using English, not just thinking it. That's when I made another bold decision. If I wanted to make my brain really think in English, not just silently, but out loud, I had to find someone to speak to. But what if no one was there? What if I was all alone? Then I remembered something simple, something powerful. I had myself. And so I began to talk to the only person who was always with me. Once I trained my brain to stop translating and started connecting English directly to my thoughts, I felt like a new door had opened. It was the first time I realized that English wasn't just a school subject or a test. It could be part of me if I allowed it. But there was one big problem. Even though I was starting to think in English, I was still too scared to speak it. I could hear English in my head. I could write a little, but when it came time to open my mouth, I panicked. My tongue felt heavy. My mind froze. I worried too much about mistakes, pronunciation, and how I sounded. Speaking was the one skill I avoided. And that's when I asked myself something important. If I can talk to myself in my native language every day, why can't I do the same in English? That question became my turning point. It began one quiet morning. I had just woken up and was brushing my teeth. Normally, my thoughts would be running wild. Things to do, memories, worries, all in my native language. But that morning, I paused. I looked into the mirror and said out loud, "Good morning, Sophia. How did you sleep?" The sentence surprised me. Not because of the words, they were simple, but because it felt like I was talking to a different version of myself, the English-speaking version. It felt strange but exciting, so I continued, "Today is Monday. You have a long day. You can do it." From that moment, I started doing it every day. Talking to myself became my new habit. My personal classroom, my safe space, and my private stage. I didn't need a teacher. I didn't need a partner. I only needed my voice. And trust me, in the beginning, it was awkward. I stumbled. I forgot words. I repeated sentences. Sometimes I laughed at myself because it felt like I was acting in a play. But day by day, it became more natural. I turned daily life into speaking practice. While getting ready, I described everything I did out loud. "I'm putting on my shoes. Where's my bag? I think I forgot my keys again." It was like I was narrating my own life. Not for an audience, just for me. This simple habit changed everything. Every time I spoke to myself in English, I got better at forming sentences. I began to think faster. I started hearing the sounds more clearly, noticing when something didn't sound right. For example, one time I said, "She go to market." It felt wrong, so I paused, thought for a second, and said, "Oh, no. She goes to the market." That's how I corrected myself naturally, without any grammar book. I wasn't memorizing anymore. I was living the language. I created small conversations like imaginary situations. I would pretend I was calling a friend and say, "Hey, long time no see, how have you been?" Then I'd play the friend and answer, "I'm good, just been busy with work. What about you?" Sometimes I was a shopkeeper, sometimes I was a customer. Sometimes I imagined I was at an airport, checking in for a flight. I practiced ordering food, asking for directions, greeting strangers, all from my room. I didn't need anyone else, I just needed my imagination. The best part, I stopped feeling judged. When you speak to others, you worry about mistakes, pronunciation, and how smart you sound. But when you speak to yourself, all that pressure disappears. There's no fear, no embarrassment, just you and your words. That freedom made me fearless. I started playing with English, testing new phrases, making jokes, using expressions I had learned from TV or songs. No way, seriously, that's hilarious. These little expressions became part of me because I used them daily. Even if just while cooking eggs or folding laundry, I also started recording myself. At first, it felt strange hearing my own voice in English. I sounded unsure, like I was pretending. But I kept doing it. Every day, I recorded a small video or audio message. I would talk about my day, my goals, my emotions. Today I feel tired. I didn't sleep well last night. I have an interview tomorrow and I'm nervous. I didn't try to be perfect, I just tried to be real, and after a few weeks, I listened back to my first recordings and smiled. I could hear the difference. My sentences were smoother, my voice was clearer, my confidence was stronger. Of course, there were days I didn't feel like talking. Days when I felt lazy or unmotivated, but even on those days, I whispered small things. "Come on, Sophia, just 5 minutes, let's try, keep going." Those words, even the short ones, kept the habit alive because the truth is, fluency isn't built on big speeches, it's built on small, consistent effort. Eventually, I started using English to express my deepest thoughts. When I was sad, I said, "I feel alone." When I was happy, I said, "Today was beautiful." When I was angry, I didn't hide it. "This is unfair, I'm upset." Speaking my emotions out loud helped me understand them better. It also made English feel more personal. It wasn't just a skill anymore, it was a part of my identity. I also noticed that the more I spoke to myself, the less I feared speaking to others. One day, a tourist stopped me on the street and asked, "Do you know where the nearest ATM is?" And guess what? I didn't freeze. I didn't think. I just replied, "Yes. Just go straight and turn right. You'll see it on the corner." After he left, I stood there for a moment smiling. Did I just answer that without panic? Yes, I did, and it was all because I had practiced those little moments every day with myself. Talking to myself also helped me solve problems. When I was confused about a word or expression, I would ask myself out loud, "Wait, is that correct?" Then I'd look it up or try to explain it in another way. For example, I once forgot the word for charger, so I said, "the thing I use to give my phone power." It worked. That taught me something powerful. Fluency is not about knowing every word, it's about being able to keep going no matter what. That skill came directly from my daily conversations with myself. I even made a small rule: no silence. Whenever I had free time, waiting in line, walking, washing dishes, I talked to myself. Not nonsense, but meaningful things. What will I do tomorrow? How did today go? What did I learn? I also asked myself questions and answered them. What's your favorite movie, Sophia? Oh, that's easy. I love The Pursuit of Happiness. It's so inspiring. These little dialogues made me feel like English was alive inside me, always there, always moving. Another trick I used was shadowing. I would watch English videos and repeat what the speaker said. At the same time, like an echo, it felt like singing along, but with real speech. It helped me improve my pronunciation, rhythm, and listening. I did it while watching TED Talks, English news, and even cooking shows. I didn't just watch, I participated. I was part of the conversation. Even if they couldn't hear me. Through all this, something amazing happened. My identity began to grow. I was no longer Sophia, the girl trying to speak English. I became Sophia, the girl who thinks and speaks in English every day. That small shift changed how I saw myself. I didn't wait for others to call me fluent. I felt fluent. Because I lived the language, even when no one was watching. So many people wait for the perfect moment to speak English, the perfect partner, the perfect class, the perfect time. But I learned that the perfect moment is now, the perfect partner is you. And the perfect place is wherever you are. Speaking to myself every day gave me the strength to express who I am. Not just in my native language, but in English too. And the more I did it, the more my brain accepted English as normal, natural, and automatic. But I wasn't done yet. I had changed the way I thought. I had changed the way I spoke. Now, it was time to change something even bigger. My entire environment, because to truly make your brain think in English, you must do one more thing: surround yourself with it, all day, every day. Once I made the habit of speaking to myself in English, everything inside me began to shift. I could feel my tongue moving more freely, my thoughts became faster, my confidence grew stronger. But deep inside, I knew something was still missing. Thinking in English, yes, talking to myself, yes, but my environment, the world around me, was still in my native language, my phone, my books, my music, my shows, even my social media. All of it pulled me back into the comfort zone of my mother tongue. So, every time I made progress with English, my surroundings would gently push me back. It felt like trying to swim against a current. One day, while watching an English YouTuber speak with such fluency and emotion, I paused the video and asked myself, what if I lived in English? What if I created a world around me that didn't allow me to escape? That question was the start of my full transformation. The very next morning, I took action. I began with small things. I changed the language on my phone to English. It might sound simple, but it forced my eyes to adapt. Suddenly, my settings, my notifications, my apps, everything was speaking to me in English. At first, I got confused. I clicked the wrong buttons. I didn't know what storage management meant. But I didn't change it back. I used Google to understand, asked AI, searched forums. Each word I didn't understand became an opportunity. Every notification became a little English lesson. Then I looked at my social media. I unfollowed most pages and people who posted only in my native language, and instead followed motivational speakers, travelers, English learners, teachers, comedians, all in English. My feed was no longer full of random local news. It became a flow of English thoughts, captions, reels, and comments. The first week was tough. I had to slow down, read more carefully, and sometimes look up meanings. But then, something amazing happened. My brain stopped treating English as a foreign language. It became normal, familiar, expected. I didn't stop there. I replaced all my music with English songs, not just popular ones, but ones that told stories, had real emotions, and taught me vocabulary through feeling. I created playlists titled Morning English, Sad English, Happy Vibes, and English Workout. When I listened to songs, I didn't just enjoy the beat. I listened deeply. I searched the lyrics. I read them, sang along, and even spoke them like poetry. Some mornings, instead of journaling, I would pick a song and say its lyrics out loud, slowly, like I was reading a story. That helped me understand the rhythm of English, the way words rise and fall, the pauses, the power of silence between phrases. Next came my free time. Before, when I wanted to relax, I would watch shows or movies in my language, but now, I made a rule: entertainment will only be in English, no exceptions. So I picked shows I liked, but in English, sitcoms, dramas, documentaries. I started with subtitles, but in English only. That way, I read and listened at the same time. I began to repeat phrases the actors used. Are you serious? That's not fair. You've got to be kidding me. I mimicked their tone, their face, their emotion. I didn't watch like a student. I watched like an actor, someone learning how to become part of the language. One night, I was watching a romantic film and a character said, "Sometimes love is just a quiet place where your soul can rest." The line hit me so deeply. I paused and whispered it again to myself. Then I wrote it in my journal. That was the first time I cried, not because I translated the words, but because I felt them. That's when I knew my brain had stopped asking for translation. It had started to understand. My journal became another powerful tool. Every night, before sleeping, I wrote in English. Not for grammar, not for practice, for reflection. I wrote About my day, my emotions, my small victories and failures. Today I struggled with the word disappointed. I saw a bird on my balcony and it made me smile. I spoke to a tourist in English today and it felt amazing. My diary became a private English world where my thoughts were free, honest, and personal. Some nights, I even argued with myself on the page. Should I keep going? Why am I doing this? What's the purpose? Writing helped me find those answers in English. Then I took it even further. I began describing the world around me, not just in my head, but out loud. When walking to the store, I'd say, "The sky looks heavy today, maybe it will rain." Or while cooking, "The onions are too sharp. My eyes are crying." It became a habit, seeing everything through the lens of English. At first, I had to think hard, but soon, it became automatic. One morning, I dropped my phone and muttered, "Oh no, not again," without even realizing it. That's when I smiled. That's when I knew English wasn't something I was doing anymore, it was something I was being. And I didn't stop with just passive learning, I created systems. Sticky notes on my fridge with sentence patterns. "Can you help me? I was wondering if." It seemed like whenever I cooked, I'd read them out loud. I stuck daily idioms on my mirror. Every week, I picked a new theme, 1 week for phrasal verbs, 1 week for describing emotions, 1 week for questions, and I used them in real life, to myself, in texts, in imaginary dialogues. I also changed how I searched for things online. Before, I would type in my language. Now, even if it was hard, I typed in English. How to stop overthinking. What's the meaning of déjà vu? Easy dinner recipes with eggs. My browser became a window into English-speaking thoughts, cultures, humor, and opinions. I began reading comment sections, reviews, blogs, not just to learn language, but to learn how English speakers think. That insight changed the way I expressed myself. But the biggest change came in how I dealt with mistakes in the past. When I made a grammar mistake, I felt embarrassed. I'd stop speaking, but now, I had created such a safe English world around me, I treated mistakes like puzzle pieces. If I said something wrong, I'd pause and say, "Wait, that didn't sound right." Then I'd try again. Or I'd search it, or ask someone. My environment gave me space to grow, not to perform. Soon, even my dreams started to shift. I began dreaming in English, not every night, but sometimes. I'd wake up remembering an English conversation, or a scene, or a question. It felt surreal. It felt like my brain had fully welcomed the language in, not as a guest, but as a resident. Over time, English stopped being something out there in schools, in books, in other countries. It became something in here, in my life, my bedroom, my thoughts, my habits. I was no longer studying English. I was simply living in it. But here's the truth no one tells you. It's not about being perfect. It's about being surrounded, drowning in English, hearing it, reading it, saying it, feeling it, letting it cover your world like sunlight. That's how you make your brain think in English. You feed it so much English, so often, in so many ways, that it forgets what it used to rely on. Now when people ask me, "Sophia, how did you become fluent?" I don't say, "I studied for years." I say, "I built an English world and lived inside it."